Hello everyone, welcome to Fullmoon Movies. Some films age quietly, others age loudly, provoking new reactions simply by existing in a different time. Dogma belongs firmly into the second category. When Kevin Smith released the film in 1999, it was controversial, provocative, and unapologetically talkative. Watching it now in 4K decades later, Dogma feels less like a scandal and more like a philosophical comedy that dared to ask uncomfortable questions at a time when mainstream cinema rarely did. The sharper image doesn't just restore the film visually, it sharpens its ideas, its contradictions, and its strange sincerity. At its core, Dogma is not a film about mocking religion, it's a film about interrogating belief. That distinction really mattered then, and it matters even more now. The story follows two fallen angels, Loki and Bartleby, played by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, who discovers a loophole in Catholic doctrine that could allow them to return to heaven. Now, if they succeed, however, they would unknowingly erase all existence by proving God wrong. Now, this paradox sits at the heart of the film. Faith, when treated as rigid law rather than living belief, can actually collapse under its own certainty. Now, what makes Dogma compelling is not its plot mechanics, but its characters' motivations. Bartleby is angry, wounded by exile and rejection. Loki, by contrast, embraces destructions almost gleefully, seeing annihilation as liberation. Their dynamic reflects two responses to delusionment, bitterness and nihilism, and Smith allows both to exist without moral simplification. The angels are not villains in the traditional sense, they are consequences of a system that left no room for doubt or mercy. Linda Fiorentino Bethany Sloane serves as the film's emotional anchor, a disenchanted Catholic struggling with infertility and spiritual fatigue. Bethany represents modern faith, present, conflicted, and quietly eroding. Her journey is not about rediscovering blind belief, but about reclaiming agency in how she understands God. Fiorentino's performance is restrained and grounded, offering a counterbalance to the film's constant verbal energy. In many ways, Bethany is the audience surrogate, not because she knows less, but because she doubts more honestly. Kevin Smith fills the film with familiar collaborators, but none feel ornamental. Jason Mewes, Jay, and Smith's Silent Bob provide the comic chaos, yet even they are woven into the theological argument. Jesus' profanity-laced honesty often cuts closer to truth than the film's so-called divine authorities. Alan Rickman's Metatron, which is the voice of God, delivers exposition with very sarcasm, as if even heaven's messengers are exhausted by humanity's need for certainty. Then there's God, played with surprisingly gentleness by Alanis Morissette. Smith's depiction avoids grandeur and replaces it with warmth and curiosity. God is not omnipresent in dialogue, but omnipresent in consequence. This version of divinity doesn't punish questions, it in fact encourages them. In hindsight, this portrayal feels less blasphemous and more radical in its humility. Thematically, Dogma revolves around one central idea: belief should evolve, ideas should not calcify into weapons. Smith famously argued that religion becomes dangerous when people stop questioning it. Now, that argument is woven into every monologue, every debate, and every contradiction the film exposes. In 1989, this felt like provocation. Today, it feels prophetic. The film anticipated a world where ideology, religious or otherwise, would harden into identity, leaving little space for nuance. Visually, Dogma has never been a showpiece, and the 4K presentation doesn't attempt to disguise that. What it offers is clarity. Faces are sharper, textures more defined, and lighting more consistent. The improvement serves the film's talk-heavy structure, allowing performances to carry greater intimacy. You notice expressions more clearly, the hesitation before a line, the exhaustion behind the humor. While the film was never meant to be cinematic spectacle, the restoration gives its visual dignity. What stands out most in revisiting Dogma now is its tone. The film is really funny, yes, but it's also earnest to a fault. Smith wears his questions openly. He doesn't pretend to have answers. He just insists on conversation. Now, that openness is rare in contemporary cinema, where irony often shields filmmakers from vulnerability. Dogma risks sincerity, and that risk is precisely why it still resonates. Critics at that time often dismissed this film as indulgent or juvenile, pointing to its profanity and self awareness. But those elements are inseparable from its voice. Dogma speaks in the language of its creator, casual, argumentative, curious, and imperfect. It doesn't aspire to the theological authority, it aspires to dialogue. Now, that humility is its strength. In the context of Kevin Smith's broader filmography, Dogma stands apart. While many of his films explore friendship, pop culture, and arrested development, Dogma reaches outward. It grapples with meaning, responsibility, and belief systems that shape lives. It's kind of messy, overlong, and occasionally self-indulgent, but it's also brave in a way few studios backed comedies dared to be even at that time. Watching Dogma today, especially in 4K, feels less like revisiting controversy and more like revisiting a conversation we never really finished. The film doesn't ask viewers to abandon faith. It actually asks them to examine it. It doesn't ridicule belief, it challenges certainty. In a world increasingly polarized by absolutes, Dogma feels strangely relevant, almost gentle in its insistence that doubt is not weakness, but in fact, it's responsibility. In the end, Dogma survives because it treats belief as a living thing, something that must breathe, bend, and change, or risk becoming destructive. It may not be a perfect film, but it's a honest one, and sometimes honesty ages better than polish. Now, seen through the clarity of the 4K restoration, Dogma doesn't just look sharper, it sounds clearer. Its questions echoes even more louder, and its core message remains quietly radical, which is faith without compassion is empty, certainty without humility is dangerous. Now, this movie is a must watch.